I'm Jen Palmer, and this speech is for public speaking class at Lebec Community College. So I remember it so vividly. I was sitting in my car, and my phone rang, and I looked down, and it was a call that I had been expecting for a long time. As I nervously said hello, the news on the other end was not what I wanted to hear. I was told that I was not healthy enough for a kidney donation for my dad. My dad had been on the kidney transplant list for 8 years. It was devastating news for me. It was devastating for me to call my parents and tell them that I could not donate my kidney to my dad. However, I remember my mom and dad saying that all things work together for good and that it would be all right. According to UNOS, as of April 29th of 2025, there are 105,032 people that are on the organ waiting list for a donation for an organ. Of those 105,032 individuals, 90,866 are waiting for a kidney. Yeah. My dad did finally receive a kidney due to the death of a man that was in a car accident. And my dad donated his body upon his death 3 years later after he had a fatal heart attack. I'm going to share with you my family's story. There's this huge need for kidneys, kidneys and organs, as I just mentioned earlier. According to WorldMark Global Health and Medicine, the list of organs currently needed and accepted for donation are corneas, kidneys, lungs, hearts, livers, bones, skin, and intestines. And there's a huge shortage. So this year alone, from January to April 25th of 2025, 25,283 people were added to the waiting list for a transplant. Of those 25,283 that are needing one, this year between January and March, only 12,071 actually received a kidney, or a donation, of an organ. So before I ever tried to donate my kidney to my dad, we got word that an anonymous live donor wanted to go through the process to give his kidney to my dad. We were elated. And then all of a sudden, we got news that he was not going to be able to receive his kidney. Once again, as prior, my parents knew that the Lord had a plan. However, I was quite upset, which led me to want to go through the process to donate my kidney to my dad. Dad's health was declining. He went from taking meds to control things to it no longer working. And so then he got on dialysis. He was able to be on dialysis at home for a period of time for about 1.5 years until that no longer was working. And then he had to have dialysis at centers for another about 1.5 years, 2 years. He had only 18% kidney function at that time. So back to the gentleman that tried to donate the kidney to my dad. As I said before, we were pretty devastated. We didn't know why due to HIPAA rules. We didn't know what happened or why the kidney transplant did not take place. Come to find out, that individual, when he went through the process, just like I did, it's a grueling time, a lot of tests, we found out that he had prostate cancer. And so if he had not gone through those tests, his life could have been cost him his life and he could have died. And so in trying to save my father's life, his life was saved. Going on, and so as I said, my dad did receive a kidney, and he had a good quality of life. He was able to do things that he could not do before. He was able to start driving again. He was able to start doing some of the church activities that he had been formerly involved in and had to stop. He was able to start traveling and taking trips. And little do we know that those trips would be some of his last trips. So like I said, Dad's life ended ultimately due to a fatal heart attack, but the loss of his life meant life for someone else. So I'm asking you this evening to consider becoming a donor, like my dad and like me. It's easy to become a donor. When you go to get your driver's license renewed, you just tell them you want to be a donor. On your driver's license, you get that pretty little red heart on it. Or you can go to organdonor.gov or kansaslife.gov. Although I believe in this process, I need to share the downside. If you're a live donor and you donate your kidney, it's not 100% guaranteed that the recipient body will accept that kidney. There could be rejection. And when that happens, you've given up an organ that you can't get back. And like I said, the person can reject that kidney, and so an organ is lost. However, there's also another downside. Like I mentioned before, my dad received an organ, and then upon his death, his body, he was going to be having his body donated. During that process, it's a very hard time for the families. They're grieving, and according to an article called Reading the Family, it's a very sensitive time because of the grief of the family, but it's also a timeline issue because of those organs needing to be transplanted into other bodies and keeping them viable. They're under a time crunch to talk to the family members. And those family members are already dealing with maybe an unexpected loss, or even if it is an expected loss, it's still a loss. And during that time, they're asked very grueling questions, very personal questions. And it was very disturbing for my mom, even as a nurse, even going through some of the process of the kidney donation. It was very disturbing, so much to her that it had wavered her own decision to even allow herself to be on the donor list upon her death. Even with the negativity, I still feel like there is still so much more good that outweighs the bad, and I will be a donor upon my death. I believe that there's still life that you can save after your own death. And I'm asking you today to consider being an organ donor. Thank you for letting me share my story with you today.
Please pause it.